just seeing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's episode of the Dr. Pierce and Dr. Davis show. our monthly
Like that?
Q&A. But it is kind of like our show, right? We do whatever we want. But we
That's
will
right.
be answering questions.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess if we're going to call it a Q&A today, we should answer some questions.
Maybe we should answer some questions. Yeah. All right. So let us know where you're coming from, where you're watching from. Let's see. We'll have we've got Christy in the background who's going to be posting. See if we have people from all over. Christy's from Ohio. I love it.
What's the weather like in Ohio right now? I wonder. Give her a moment to answer. What's the weather like?
Cold.
Yeah. How about in Utah? Is it changing?
It's changing. It's that little crisp in the air in the morning, which I love. I'm liking it. Oh, she says it's hot in Ohio.
Huh.
Hey, Kim.
Hey,
Dr.
Schroyer. Yeah, well, it's certainly feeling like fall over here. It's cloudier. We actually got a little bit of rain, which is pretty weird for us in September. We have a very Mediterranean pattern of weather, and so it's usually not a drop of rain at all until November, sometimes October.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But not as dry as Palm Springs,
Palm Desert.
which I was at Palm Springs and Palm Desert this weekend at the Plantrician Conference. Man, that is they don't call it Palm Desert for no reason.
It is a desert there, isn't it? Yeah.
Quite so.
Was it pretty hot and dry?
Oh, just like 99 or so.
Yeah.
Running in the morning.
The norm. 100 degrees is just the normal now.
Whew. Running in the morning. I'm not usually a run at 5:45 in the morning person, but there's almost no other time to get exercise in. So you'd go run. It was already upper 70s at that time. It's pretty wild. And but beautiful and in its own way. And of course, probably the place that grows the most dates in the United States. I'm assuming no other place grows more, like Coachella and Indio and that area down there. And so I know a few people that like dates and date paste and date powder. Thank you, syrup. Southern California and yeah, exactly.
That's great. Well, I wonder if you can get some like really fresh, delicious dates in that area when you're visiting.
Yeah, I asked about it too late on the way to the airport. Our Uber driver was a local, been there all her life, and she said, "Oh yeah, just like 20 minutes away, you can do like a farm tour and all this kind of stuff."
That would be fun.
Another time.
I like that. Well, speaking of dry, hot places, I was just in Las Vegas for the plant powered party.
Yeah,
and that was fun.
Tell us about that.
Hot there. It was the same thing. I had to get up really early to walk, and get out before it got too hot. It was hot, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. Lots of people came. Yeah.
This was predominantly in celebration of Dr. John McDougall's life. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it was that, and then it was also like a conference. We had lots of speakers there. And it was eating delicious, yummy, healthy food and socializing with other plant folks.
That's awesome. There were some people at the Plantrician Conference that had just been at that weekend. And I heard there was also some comedy acts as well.
I heard that too. Yeah, I had my debut stand-up comedy act in Vegas to a sold-out crowd. I can say that now.
Oh man.
right?
Yeah. You didn't have
I
to
think I
work
gotta
your
put
way
that
up.
on my resume.
Yeah, yeah. You didn't have to work your way up from like little hole in the wall dive comedy
No,
bars with like three
no,
people in the audience. You
packed
just started
house.
in Vegas with a packed house.
Yes, yes.
Would we expect anything less from Dr. Nikki Davis? No.
And I didn't even bomb. I did okay. I did all right.
Nice. No
So
booze,
we'll
no
see.
tomatoes. No one's going to throw
Nope.
tomatoes at that place because they realize how valuable tomatoes are, so they'd
Yeah,
rather
you
eat
can't
them, I
throw
think.
away the lycopene.
Like,
So yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll have to come up with a new set for next year. It's drivable from where I am. So Las Vegas is like a 6, 7 hour drive from here. So
okay,
yeah, and my mom doesn't live too far from there. So it's an excuse to get down there. So I'll probably go next year.
cool.
So you should come.
Um, maybe so. I have mixed feelings about Vegas. It's a
I
great
know.
place for conferences because it's easy to get to, but I don't do well inside buildings all the time.
I
But
know.
there are
Yeah.
there's some cool things to do outside too, I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been chatting so much, which I appreciate, but let's get into some questions. So, Christy, why don't you
Fine.
post our first question? All right. So, Lindsay is asking for a recommendation for vitamin D3 with or without vitamin K. She was taking 2,000 international units without K, and then her calcium got a little elevated. So, she stopped taking it, and now the calcium level's normal. Dr. Pierce, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, we love, by the way, we love to answer all these general questions, but can't say that they pertain specifically to any one person. So if you're having these issues, particularly to yourself, please check in with your doc so you can get excellent personal medical care. But speaking generally, I have found, and I'm sure you'd like to talk more about this as well, but I found that so vitamin D, when you can get it from the sun, is a great way to do it because all the extra benefits of being outside in nature. We know that just listening to birds chirping lowered blood pressure. I think that study was just done with like a recording of bird noises, and so it's amazing how just getting outside is so important for us. Getting out into areas that are full of nature has been shown to also help our immune system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So try to get it outside if you can. Put some wear a hat, put some sunblock on your face so that you're not getting skin cancer on these areas that are super hard to treat if you do get an early pre-cancer. But do get some sunshine. Now, as we're in the northern hemisphere or way in the southern hemisphere, the further away we get from our equator and the further we get into into the winter time, the harder it is to get our vitamin D from the sun. So doing a little vitamin D supplementation may be important. 2,000 international units is a pretty good amount. And I'm not worried about taking the vitamin K based on what we know so far of our mammalian cells' ability to make vitamin K2, as well as our microbiome's ability to convert it. And in general, I don't see much change in the calcium because calcium is so well regulated by our parathyroid and bones, et cetera, that I would wonder if it was the vitamin D that was changing the calcium level for sure. What do you think, Dr.
Yeah,
Davis?
no, I agree. So I just want to clarify. So what you're saying is that you don't think that the vitamin K is necessary to take with the D3 in
Right.
order to get the absorption. Yeah, I agree. And I would also say 2,000 IU is a decent amount. Now, of course, if you're not sure how much you should be taking, I would say a lot of people can get away with less. 600 IU a day or maybe 1,000. So just making sure that for you what level you need to have in order to have and of course it's a little bit controversial as to what level we're shooting for. Seems like 20 to 40 is kind of in that, and I know that below 30, is considered to not be quite as sufficient, but based on, some reviews that have been done, it seems like somewhere in the 20 to 40 range seems to be okay if you're supplementing. So you're just basically, if you are supplementing vitamin D, you don't need to be shooting for 100. You're just trying to get up into the, somewhat normal level by supplementing. So I will see people go and buy vitamin D supplement from, say, Costco, and it's this big jug of it, and it's 5,000 IU, and they don't even realize, boy, that's a hefty dose that you don't really need to take that much. So just talk to your doctor about how much is right for you.
Can
And
I?
then,
Oh,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say it's fascinating how this is a very controversial topic because
Yeah,
lots of studies. So we know, every just about everybody in the world agrees that vitamin D is important for bone health, and that if you don't get it, as a child, you can get rickets, or as an adult, you can get osteomalacia. It's critical to bone health. Many, many, many studies have shown that having low vitamin D levels in your blood is associated with all sorts of other conditions, cancers, and dying early, and really important things like that. But but the vast majority of studies, when they say, okay, here's this group with low vitamin D levels, now we're going to put them on vitamin D and get their vitamin D levels up, and let's see if this decreases the risk for some of these things. The majority of those studies haven't panned out. So there's a whole group of very smart doctors who say never check a vitamin D level and don't worry about taking vitamin D. Do get outside if you're at very high risk for having low vitamin D, and that tends to be folks who are uh, dealing with overweight and obesity and other conditions, that maybe check a value once. And so part of the idea is having a low vitamin D a marker for maybe just not getting out and about as much as someone who has a normal vitamin D level. So I think we're going to know more in 5 or 10 years. But in the
yeah,
meantime, find what feels right to you. But I think for a lot of us, it's getting outside, getting some sunshine. And then during the winter months, if you have been known to have low vitamin D levels, especially less than 20, that you should be getting some supplemental D. Would you agree with that, Dr. Davis? Or,
yeah, yep,
yeah.
definitely. And also just being aware that if you do get a fair amount of sunshine through the warmer months, your body does store some vitamin D. So you do have some of that to be able to utilize during the winter. But most of us are indoors a lot more than humans were really ever meant to be. So it is difficult to get what we need. Absolutely. But it is a great excuse to get outside and get some movement, walk with a friend, get some socializing, and then get into nature, right? And then you just get that vitamin D naturally.
Yeah.
I love I love the it's like a little puppet show. All right. All right. So next, Evelyn is asking, is it possible to find sublingual vitamin B12 without sorbitol or mannitol? What do you take for your vitamin B12? Okay, so mine I take is just it's one I find on Amazon, and it is a sublingual. Let's see. Mine is just the 365 brand, and it looks like it does not have sorbitol or mannitol in it. So mine's the 365 vitamin B12 500 microgram. It's really inexpensive, and it has everything that I want in a vitamin B12. So it's sublingual, so you're going to absorb it a little bit better than you would if you swallowed it. Um, it's 500 micrograms, which is what I take every day. And it is the cyanocobalamin version, which it's okay if you take methylcobalamin, but Dr. Greger kind of did a review from nutritionfacts.org, and he found that most people absorb cyanocobalamin a little bit better. So that's why I recommend that one. So yeah, so that's what I use. Dr. Pierce, do you have a specific one that you like?
Is it important to take vitamin B12? No, skip. Yes, don't forget to take your vitamin B12.
Vegan jokes, vegan jokes.
Yeah, even if you're not 100% vegan or plant-based, as we get older, a number of us can get lower vitamin B12 levels. So get checked. It's important for nerve health and blood health, and the having low values can be, it's not obvious. It can be subtle. And so you do want to get your levels checked. I use a brand that's called Pure Encapsulations. That's easily available for me. And actually, the form that I find is they have it as methylcobalamin. I don't worry about. It's like use the kind that you can get to. Cyanocobalamin tends to be a little bit less expensive and very and fine, shelf stable. I think both pretty good options, but that's just the one that they had. I take a pill of it, and I was just looking at their liquid version, and it looks like that doesn't have mannitol or sorbitol in it as well. But the idea is B12 is we used to get enough B12 when we were eating closer to the ground with the soil microbes on our food. Cows get it because, a free grazing cow would get it because they're getting some of those microbes as they are eating their grass. And we omnivores get it from the cow per se. But let's skip the middle moo, as Dr. Greger would say, and just get it directly from a pill. And it's you can get it from fortified nutritional yeast, you can get it from a daily vitamin, but it's best and easiest generally just to take it as a supplement where you're taking 1 to 2,000. Some would say 2,000 a week is fine. Other people like to take a little bit every day. We just need a tiny amount, something like a couple of micrograms.
Micrograms.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
2.4, 1.2, something like that. But
Yeah.
taking these larger amounts allows us to absorb it a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't absorb a lot of it. And that's why when you see your jar of B12, it will say on there, like, I don't know, 5,000 times the daily value or something like that. Probably
Yeah,
not that much, but it's because you only absorb a small amount of it. So that's why you have to take a bigger
yeah,
dose than what is what is needed daily. So,
exactly.
all right, next question. Reve, I follow a whole food plant-based diet, and it is time for my annual blood work. What should I ask for so that I get more more than the traditional lipid panel? I think ApoB needs to be requested specifically, for example. Okay, so as far as annual blood work goes, if you're looking for something in addition to the lipid panel, so the lipid panel is going to tell you about your cholesterol, so your total, your LDL, the quote unquote bad cholesterol, the HDL, the quote unquote good cholesterol, non-HDL is sometimes included, and then triglycerides. So in addition to that, I would say that for an annual, when I'm ordering an annual panel, I usually just look at the lipid. But sometimes if someone is really wanting more information about their overall cardiovascular risk, we might check some additional things. And so that might include the apolipoprotein B, like you're mentioning there. And that is just a protein that is on the outside of all of the lipid particles that can become plaque in your arteries. So not only the LDL, but also other things like VLDL and chylomicrons that can also become plaque. So it gives us a little bit of a better idea as to your overall risk. So I think it is something that you could include. The other one that I'll check once would be the lipoprotein little a. And that one is more like an LDL particle that's especially sticky. So it's just much more likely to become plaque if you have too much cholesterol running through your arteries. So, so that LP little a is mostly genetic. I have heard some cases where it's been able to be lowered. Like for instance, at True North Health, they did have a case in which someone was able to lower their LP little a. But my question would be, does it lower with not eating for a certain amount of time? Because that's what this person was doing, was fasting, water only fasting. Does that value come back up again in the future? And I don't think we know enough yet whether or not it maintains that benefit once you start eating again. So because it's mostly genetic and doesn't really change much with lifestyle, I typically will only check the lipoprotein little a once. But we're always learning new things and changing over time. So there's a chance that if we can find some things that might help it, that we could check it again. And then the third thing that I might check would be a high sensitivity or cardiac C-reactive protein. So those three are kind of the ones that if somebody says to me, I would like to get a little bit of additional information on my cardiovascular risk, that I would add those three. There are plenty of other cardiac markers out there that we could also check. There's imaging that can be done. But I would say if you're just looking for kind of a slightly increased view of what your cardiovascular risk is, that those would be the three that I would get. Anything else that you want to add, Dr. Pierce, or anything that you feel you'd do differently?
No, it sounds great. I think for the majority of people, checking a lipid panel, where it gives us all that information, a basic lipid panel, is quite helpful.
Hmm.
And for someone with an overall low risk of heart disease who has, that excellent total cholesterol and LDL or non-HDL cholesterol levels, then I think you're done. I think some people are really wanting to just maximize, fine tune, leave no stone unturned, and you want to check some other things. And I think that's totally fine, especially if you have a lot of heart disease in your family, especially if you've got more genetic predisposition to it, and checking all that stuff is great. We have the most evidence on following the LDL for cholesterol risk, for heart attack risk and mortality risk, right? That's why Dr. Davis and I are talking about this, is because um, the number one killer of adults in America and all around the world nowadays is heart disease, and mostly coronary heart disease, having a big heart attack. And the number one risk factor for that is having a high LDL cholesterol. But things like apolipoprotein B tracks a little bit better from some of this newer research, tracks even a little bit better than the LDL cholesterol and things like that. But know your cholesterol numbers, talk with your doc, see if you need more.
Yeah. And the other thing that I will mention that I've started noticing, because I've been checking it a little bit more in people who are asking about, assessing their cardiovascular risk a little bit more than just a lipid panel, looking at the omega fat levels.
Mm.
And, we know that omega fats are essential, meaning your body does not make omega 3 or omega 6 fats. Those are something that you need to get through your diet. And as I'm checking these values in people, for the most part, I would say people are either just barely getting enough or suboptimal. And so that is something that I really do feel like we need to make sure, because that is an independent risk factor for cardiovascular disease. We know that people who have a lower omega fat level have an increased risk of things like heart attacks. So it is important that we make sure we get enough omega fats. And a lot of people think omega fats, oh, that's I need to get more fish, I need to eat salmon, but you don't. You can certainly get omega fats through your diet. There are supplements that you can get that are algae based, that aren't fish oil. So make sure that you're talking to your doctor about that if you are wanting to fine tune and really make sure that all of your risk factors are at optimal levels.
Totally.
Okay. All right.
Reve's, I
All
guess,
right. And
asking for Reve's, it looks like she's asking for, in addition to the lipid stuff, what else? I bet you Nikki and I order very similar things. So typically, if somebody's getting their once a year blood work, we typically are getting a CBC, which is complete blood count, looking at making sure you're not anemic is probably the main reason we get it. Yeah, every once in a while you'll find somebody with really low or high platelets or really low or high white blood cells. But I guess probably the most common reason in our population that we're doing it for is screening for anemia, which would be a low hemoglobin and hematocrit. We get comprehensive metabolic panel, which looks at your electrolytes, but probably more importantly, your kidney function, liver function, and fasting glucose in
mhm.
that. And then an A1C for most folks to screen for diabetes, a B12, like we've talked about, and a D, depending on the patient. And Dr. Davis already mentioned the CRP, which related inflammation and cardiac. Anything else that you get routinely? Oh, sorry, she asked about iodine. You want to talk about iodine?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, iodine, I don't typically check. If I do check it, I usually will have people do the 24-hour urine iodine, which means you have to collect your own urine for 24 hours. So, not a fun test. But it's really specifically for my patients who already have thyroid issues, and maybe it's a new thyroid issue. Maybe they're taking an iodine supplement, or they're completely salt, oil, sugar free and not eating sea vegetables, so they might be iodine deficient. So really just looking for, is the iodine level affecting their thyroid? And so in those cases, sometimes I will check it, but I usually don't do that as just a screening. It would be for a specific reason. Iron, same thing. If they're found to be anemic on CBC, Or if they're having some symptoms like, boy, I just feel short of breath lately, or I'm really fatigued lately, then maybe we might check an iron, ferritin, but it's not something I routinely would check. Um, and then the only other thing I would add is, if we're checking an A1C, typically we would look at that for someone who maybe has a comorbidity, like, they're overweight or obese. Maybe they have something that would make it more likely that they might be pre-diabetic or diabetic. And I would say sometimes I'll even check TSH because so many people have low thyroid. Even just checking that once, it doesn't necessarily need to be every year. But if you have a family history, maybe you already have an autoimmune condition, it might be worth adding a TSH. It's a pretty inexpensive test. Same with the A1C. So yeah, those would be the other, like you said, the A1C, and then maybe a TSH would be something I might add depending on the person.
Awesome.
All right. Okay, so I'm not, did we have this person last
Christine.
time? Yeah,
Christine. That's
Christine. That's right. I was
right.
like, it means something. I don't want to say it wrong. So whole food plant-based docs have differing opinions on to supplement or not to supplement with vegan DHA. What is both of your opinions on the subject?
Mm.
What do you think, Dr. Pierce? I'll let you go first.
This is a tough one. Personally, I think that that there's a good reason for debate because we don't have awesome, solid evidence. So the idea is related to what Dr. Davis was just saying. These omega-3 fats, they're short chain ALA, and then the long chain DHA, EPA. We need to get them externally. And the way to easily get them from the diet is to eat ALA-rich foods like ground flax, chia, hemp, walnuts, and then our body can convert them to longer chain DHA and EPA. We feel pretty strongly like that this is helpful for brain health, probably good for heart health, definitely good for pregnant moms to have their babies' brain and eye development, for example. So they're critical. Part of the problem is that there's variability in how well we can convert the ALA omega-3s from our diet to the critical DHA and EPA. Some people do it well. I think on average, women of childbearing age do it the best. And then other people don't do it so well. And so some folks would say, check your omega levels and work really hard either with diet or diet plus additional microalgae-based DHA, EPA to get your levels in the correct range to primarily, we're talking about it now, to decrease your risk for dementia as we get older. So as Christina says, has said, some folks in the plant-based world who are very knowledgeable feel very strongly about doing it, and they do it and recommend everybody do it. Other people feel very strongly that we get enough from our diet and not to worry about it. I listened to a very nice podcast, long podcast from some brain experts and experts on omega-3s on the Your Brain on Omega-3 podcast by Dean and Ayesha Sherzai. And after a very long podcast, I still wasn't totally sure what we should be doing. And so I think, so personally, I try to get flax and chia every day. I have been debating personally about taking an algae supplement, but I do not currently. Dr. Greger has said that he does. Dr. Furman does. I don't know about some of the other big names in this world. I think for somebody, like all of medicine, it's a personalized decision. As I talk with my patient about how important this is, for someone who hates taking pills and doesn't have any dementia in their family and is a doubter, then I'd say skip it. And if we learn more, I'll tell you more. If you have somebody who has had dementia and all their elderly relatives is nervous about this and has no problem taking pills, I'd say take your DHA and EPA and sleep better. And especially if you can, they're not terribly expensive and stuff like that. So individual answers, no easy answer on this, in my opinion. Nikki?
Yeah. I feel like I I mean, you said that very well, and I agree with all of it. So I really, it's exactly the same thing that I've come to the conclusion is it's not an easy thing to answer. I have been known to just say, hey, it's best if you can get it through your diet if possible. And I have seen people where, we've checked an omega fat level, it's been on the lower end. They make sure that they're getting 1 or 2 tablespoons of ground flax every day. We recheck it and it's come back up and it's in a great level. So, people can convert and you don't necessarily need to take a supplement. But like you said, that's not for everyone. And it's depending on your family history, depending on your own personal history, depending on your levels, it may be worth taking a supplement as well. So yeah, so I feel the same way as you do. And I've also personally been wondering if it's something that I should, I really do try to get flax every single day. And I think I'm pretty good at it. I have not had my omega fat levels checked. So maybe that's something I need to do and see where I'm at, decide from there.
I'll check yours and you can check mine.
Hey, I like that. Let's do it. Although I'm one of those doctors that's really afraid of needles. So I'm not going to get a lab done unless I really, really feel like I need it.
Great, great. Do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. All right. Christine is also asking, what are your opinions on intermittent fasting and time restricted eating? Okay, I can say really quickly. Um, okay, so in general, intermittent fasting is fasting, for say a day every week or a day every month. That's fasting intermittently. Time restricted eating is really that every day you're focusing on a certain amount of time that you're going to allow yourself to eat. And so that, you have an amount of time that you're not eating as well. And I think both can be beneficial for long term health. Time restricted eating, I think, personally, I think that the real benefit comes in when you stop eating for the day, that you're just stopping 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed. So you don't have a full stomach. It helps uh, with, if you have reflux issues, it'll help with that. It helps you sleep better. It actually helps if you're trying to lose weight. You're better off eating earlier in the day and not later in the day. So I think that that's, for me, the real benefit of the time restricted eating. Now, there are some studies that have shown benefit for people doing a really narrow window to help with fatty liver disease or obesity. But I personally feel like you need to really talk to your doctor about that to make sure that what you're doing is safe. Because I mean, they'll go as few as 6 hours of eating window, which is not very much time. I mean, you barely get in 2 meals with that. I think that could be a tool that could be used for certain people, but certainly it's not something that I think should be done for the long term, having it be such a narrow window. I think that for most people, it's a good idea to have a good, healthy, big breakfast in the morning, have lunch, and then for dinner, have kind of a light dinner and stop a few hours before bed.
And shoot for 12, 13 hours between dinner and tomorrow's breakfast.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anything else that you'd add?
Oh, just on the intermittent fasting part of that last question was, yeah, you can eat your dinner, and then that's the beginning of your fast, and then not eat until dinner the next day, but staying super well hydrated. That's a 24-hour fast and safe for most people, say maybe outside of people with type 1 diabetes or other insulin controlled diabetes. You have to be very careful about that. But in general, a 24-hour fast is a pretty safe thing to do, and doing that every once in a while could be helpful. And then there's also the fasting mimicking diet through Prolon and L-Nutra, the work done by Dr. Walter Longo, who has basically has developed a diet where you eat very low calorie but very specific ratios, and it kind of tricks your body into fasting, and can be a little bit safer and more tolerated at home. But those are just a
Yeah.
little comment on that.
Yeah. So just being careful that you're not doing long water only fasts
Yeah.
without being medically supervised. And I would say definitely, I would say more than 24 hours, maybe 48 hours at the most, that, but I'm thinking more than 24, really, you want to be supervised.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Like at a place like True North in Santa
yeah,
Rosa with Dr. Goldhammer and his great team. Yeah.
yeah. And, with the Prolon and L-Nutra, doing those 5 days, the L-Nutra program is specifically for people with diabetes or prediabetes, and we do help with medical care for that program. So if you're someone who's wanting to do some fasting, get the benefits of fasting, and improve A1C and blood sugar, that's something you could consider. There's information on our website about that. Okay, Reve says, fasting is an interesting subject. How many hours on your own is too many? Oh, so we just talked about that. She does 36 hours once a month. Longer than that seems risky, right? I would agree. Yeah. Anything else you'd add?
Yeah, I usually say 24 max, and always be talking to your doc, even if you're doing a 24, but particularly for more than that. Oh yeah, we did have an article on fasting mimicking diet recently in the newsletter, and if you don't get the newsletter, um, uh, talk to the people who can get you a newsletter. That's what I'm
I think you could probably go to our website
Yes.
and get added to the newsletter, the email
Excellent.
list. All
What else?
right. Okay, so from Instagram, opinions on 10,000
Mm,
steps a day. Too much? Just enough?
mm.
Do you have any opinions on this, Dr. Pierce?
I mean, I'll tell you what little I know about the research. I believe that the 10,000 steps was a part of a sort of marketing push from a company selling a pedometer in Japan, where something like the Japanese symbol kind of look of 10,000 looked like someone walking or something. I'm getting that wrong, even though I took 2 years of Japanese in high school. I should probably know more, but but so do you need 10,000 steps? I what I have read, what I've learned is that you could probably do fine with less than that, maybe 7,000 steps a day. The idea is that it's a great motivator to stay active. We sit too much as a nation, and that is bad for our health, very bad for our health. And getting up and walking and a pedometer can help. I don't wear one now, but I wore some sort of a smartwatch for a while, and it was motivating to see what I had done and had not done. And I'm not too embarrassed to admit, like at like 11:30 at night before going to bed, I realized I had like 10 steps left to get to 10,000, and I sort of like walked around my bedroom for 10 steps before I got into bed. That
You
might
know,
be taking
just
too
shake
far.
your watch.
That's true. 9, 10. Um, but uh, uh, but they can be motivating. Um, I don't think 10,000 is too much per se, because in general, the more active we are, the better. I mean, the reason why the CDC recommends 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise a week is because studies show that if we got 2 minutes a week, not very helpful. But the more we got, the more helpful. And there is no real ceiling, but you have diminishing returns for much more. So, for example, if you exercised 80 hours a week, that might be better than 79 hours a week, but not noticeably. But certainly 6 hours a week is much better for us than doing 2 hours a week or 1 hour a week. And so, anyway, all that to say is find something that motivates you to get up and out, preferably outdoors when the weather allows. And it's going to decrease your risk for heart attacks and for dementia and for cancers. um, Exercise isn't always fun, but when I'm like trying to find motivation to get out there, I'm just like, this is going to extend my life potentially and decrease my risk for colon cancer. So like, fine, I'll get out in the rain and do a little jog.
Yeah. Well, and I think also, this idea of creating your life in a way in which
Mm,
you automatically do movement.
Mm,
So I have I have recently removed all of my lawn, most of my lawn,
mm,
and am trying to grow thyme. And while that is growing, I have lots of weeds, and so I don't want there to be weeds. And so part of my daily movement is I'm motivated to go out and squat down, up and down, and up and down, pulling out all these weeds. Uh, you know, uh, if you, for instance, want to make sure that you're getting out and walking every day, having a partner so that you feel like, you don't want to tell them that you can't do it. So it's just easier to make sure that you actually do it. So setting yourself up in ways that it makes it a more natural, that you're not having to decide for yourself in that moment, am I going to get up and go out or not? If it's something that you enjoy, if it's something that you're doing with another person, if it's something that um, you know is made to be part of your day, then I think that's where the 10,000 steps, it's really just getting that consistent movement throughout the day. You shouldn't get 10,000 steps all in one go. It's meant to be throughout the day.
mm.
So yeah. All right. Next question. I have osteoporosis and would like to get a weighted vest. What are the things I should consider, and do you have any recommendations? Uh, so I will say, I give my patients who have low bone density lots of recommendations for what they can do with their lifestyle to help build bone density. And if they're people that like to walk, uh, I do recommend that they wear a weighted vest to help. Just if you're going to be walking anyway, why not get some additional benefit by putting a little bit of extra weight on your body? So that is something that I recommend. You don't really need a lot. I would say some people, where you can go wrong is just buying a vest that's really, really heavy, and then it's not so, you get really sweaty and it's just too much, and then you just don't continue with it. So I don't know, 4 to 6 pounds. You can even get them where the weights are removable, so you could try a lower amount, especially if you already have severe osteoporosis. We also don't want to be putting way too much weight on you, because we don't want to increase the risk of a fracture just from that. So you want to start with a low amount, maybe only 2 pounds, and then move up as you're able to. So it does kind of depend on the person, but in general, I think if you're somebody who likes to get out and walk, why not take advantage of that and wear a little bit of a weighted vest? What do you think, Dr. Pierce?
Yeah, I think weighted vests can be really helpful. There was a study in 2000 that showed that weighted vests. This was, I believe, in people mostly in their mid 60s. Weighted vests plus jumping exercises, particularly so more high intensity, was particularly helpful in postmenopausal women, and so maybe weighted vests. And and not getting much walking or not getting much other exercise isn't so helpful. And so just make sure that it's part of a bigger exercise program, particularly more high intensity stuff. But if you're going out for a walk, put that backpack on, put that weighted vest on, and it will help with strength and hopefully decrease your risk of falling. Right? It's bones generally don't break spontaneously. It's usually related to a fall. And a study came out just a couple of months ago that said, well, in these older folks in their mid 60s that were on a weight loss program, comparing people with and without weighted vests, and also people who are doing strength training exercise routine, that they all lost some bone marrow density as they lost weight. But losing 10% of your body weight, if you're obese, can have some seriously helpful benefits to heart health and stuff like that. And so the lead author of that study said keep wearing your weight vests even if you're losing weight. It's not like it's bone marrow density is not the only important thing here, right? You have to be eating a well-balanced diet. You have to be getting enough vitamin D. You have to be benefiting from weight vests for your strength and even your balance as you're doing things like Tai Chi and yoga and stuff like that. So it's not a cure-all, but it certainly can be helpful.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, that we talk a lot about with osteopenia and osteoporosis, trying to increase bone density. But in addition to that, you're also wanting to make sure that you're preventing falls by making, having really good balance, having good core strength. That's really one of the things that can help so much, because if you can prevent that fall to begin with, then the bone density doesn't matter as much, right? It still matters, but if you can prevent that fall, that's where most fractures happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like, as we're going into cold season, it should, the only question isn't how do I get more vitamin C? It's, how do I improve my immunity so I don't get sick? You want to don't sit next to the person sneezing on your face in the concert, and make sure you're getting enough sleep, and making sure you're eating a good, a healthy diet, and that you're getting appropriate vaccines. Like, it all plays this big role into avoiding getting sick, not just, what's the best vitamin C supplement or something like that.
Right. All right. And then we got an email submitted for beginners. Where do you recommend we find info on safe strength training routines? And I assume that this is also related to the bone density, but not sure. But strength training routines. Let's see. There's a website, specifically for bone density, that is Save Our Bones. I want to say it's saveourbones.org. I would have to look it up to know for sure. Let's see. No, saveourbones.com. And so they have specific workout routines for people with low bone density to make sure that they are doing that safely. There's also a group of in-person centers called OsteoStrong, and I think the website is osteostrong.me, where you can find if they have a location in your area. And they also do specific exercises to help with bone health. The next few questions are related to the bone density webinar. Yeah. So, all right. Anything else you wanted to add to that, Dr. Pierce? Do you have any other resources?
If you look up John Pierre, he's somebody in the plant-based world who's got a lot of good exercise routines out there. And then I think there's like various, I'm blanking on some of the names, but like Plant Fit, vegan gym, and things like that will have some nice osteoporosis minded exercise routines. And but yeah, start low, go slow, talk to your provider before that. You don't want to have undiagnosed advanced heart disease and then go out and sprint on day one and have a massive MI or something. So just make sure that you dip your toe in and advance safely.
Yeah. All right. And then the next question, are body weight exercises enough to improve bone density, such as yoga, Pilates, push-ups, squats, with just body weight? So we call this weight-bearing exercise. Weight bearing, it's interesting because absolutely weight bearing is important because you're telling your body that you need a certain bone density to carry that weight. But if you're already fairly thin, and I would say a lot of the women that I work with who are postmenopausal and have low bone density tend to be on the thinner side. And so that weight bearing exercise is great, but it's sometimes not enough. And so that's where, things like we've talked about, adding a weighted vest may be able to help with that. And I think that doing those exercises, including like resistance exercises, strengthening, strength exercises, but then, like we mentioned earlier, also making sure that you're getting balance exercises. So, Tai Chi, for instance, has been shown to really help reduce the risk of falling, which is, like we said, like not just improving bone density that's important. It's also making sure that you can get up and down, you can squat, you can get up and down off the floor, that you have really good balance so that you're decreasing that risk. Yeah. Okay.
I agree.
All right. Okay, so the next one is, what is the minimum, all caps, minimum amount for daily protein intake? I kind of want to yell it when it's bolded like that. Um, or all caps. Say perhaps for those that are doing 5 to 2 for weight loss, having lower calorie intake in general, what minimum amount of protein is a must? Um, I'm not sure what they're saying with the 5 to 2. Do you know?
5 days of eating, 2 days of fasting for
Ah,
intermittent.
got it. Okay, so you're taking in fewer calories overall for the week. Well, I will say that what I tell my patients, and this is just general because it's not for everyone, but the World Health Organization and the CDC both agree that zero point 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of ideal body weight is enough for most people. There is a little bit of information out there that seems to suggest that maybe people who are over 65, if you're pregnant and breastfeeding, um, what else? I feel like there's another group. Oh, athletes, of
Trouble with
course.
malabsorption.
Yeah, that you
Mhm.
might need a little bit more than that, but maybe 1 gram instead of zero point 0.8. So, um, yeah, so that's very general. So, of course, everyone's a little bit different. There was a really interesting article that Dr. John McDougall wrote about kind of the history of protein. And there was a really interesting study that was done, I think it was in the 40s or the 50s,
Mm.
really looking at what is the very minimal amount of amino acids that someone can take and survive, basically. And it was pretty low, especially compared to like that zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram. If you're getting that, you're getting well above what was found in this study. So if you go and look, you could probably look at protein intake and Dr. John McDougall, you can find that article, but it's pretty interesting to kind of look at the history of what's been recommended, what studies have been done on what kind of those minimum amounts are. But I will say in general, that's about what I would recommend.
Yeah. It's an interesting. This is also a bit controversial because eating lower protein seems to be longevity promoting. And so, we have such a focus on eating more and more protein, which this emailed question is not about, but there's such a focus about, getting 2 to 3 times what the WHO is recommending. And particularly animal protein, it seems to be associated with if you're getting too much, that it can be counteractive to living a long life. So yeah, I recommend the 0.8 grams per kilogram of healthy body weight for someone who barely eats, whether because they're elderly and they have just decreased appetite, or it's hard to eat because of dentition, and or maybe you don't eat as often because you are fasting more. You just have to pay attention. You have to pay a little bit more attention to not just eating a big a lettuce and tomato salad for your lunch, but really paying attention to getting chickpeas, beans, lentils, split peas, nuts and seeds and whole grains to make sure that you're getting all the protein that you need. I mean, there's protein in lettuce and kale as well,
Yeah.
but you have to pay a little bit more attention to it in that case. I don't follow my protein intake, and a lot of plant-based docs don't recommend their patients to. Every once in a while, especially if you're doing a lot of fasting and you're worried about protein intake, you might want to follow it for a little bit and just see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, somehow it's already been almost an hour. So I feel like these Q&As go by really fast, but we're planning on doing these every single month. I guess it's the second Thursday. I think that we have them scheduled always as the second Thursday of the month. Is that right? Do you know?
I think so.
Well, we'll post about it, but basically the second Thursday of the month at this time, we are planning to have Q&As. So please feel free to send in your questions. You can always call us as well. Submit your question that way. Okay, next time that we'll be back with the Q&A session will be on October 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So thank you again, Dr. Pierce, for joining me today on the Jeff and Niki show. Uh,
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
everybody, for for watching today. If you have not worked with one of our doctors, we would love to see you. We have 6 doctors who cover the United States, international. We would love to be part of your journey if you are just looking for support because you are changing to a plant-based diet, or you need help with all of the lifestyle medicine pillars, including sleep and stress management. Maybe you're on a bunch of medications and you don't want to be, and you want help with reversing those chronic lifestyle related diseases that you're taking the medication for in the first place. We would love to help with that. So just go to our website at lifestyletelemedicine.com. You can make an appointment there. You can also call us. Most of the time, if you call our number, you can talk to Susan. She's wonderful, 888-420-7284. Would absolutely love to talk to you. Until next time, we will see you for the next Q&A. Thank you again, Dr. Pierce. I'm Dr. Niki Davis with Lifestyle Telemedicine. Bye, everybody.
Bye.